This is a rough draft that I did yesterday, and I want to walk you guys through how you can go about using this rough draft to put your measurements on there and to eventually make your final draft for your scale drawing. So I did some of these measurements for you, so you guys can just copy these down onto your own rough draft. Okay, thank you. So first things first, just to orient ourselves so we know what part of the room is where. The top of your paper is typically going to be north, so the north wall is that wall back there, the one with the headphones and everything on it. Okay, now the east wall is going to be this wall over here. The east wall is the wall with the windows on it, okay? Now the south wall is going to be the wall that my back is to. It's the wall with the smartboard on it. That's down here. And then the west wall is going to be the wall over here with the cupboards and the countertops. So now that we're all oriented, I'm going to be mainly working on the south wall today. And I took some measurements yesterday, so you guys can just copy these in. So for example, like starting over in the southeast corner, there's that little corner of the room that sticks out, that juts out. And that right there, I measured that and I realized that that was 27 centimeters by 27 centimeters. It's a square. So that right there is 27. This right here is 27 centimeters. Okay. And then when I go along the bottom, I measured from the side of that little beam that juts out all the way to this beam right here. And in between that, that is 565 centimeters. So the way I mark it is just a line connecting the two endpoints. Okay, so that was 565 centimeters. And then the beam itself is almost identical to that beam, but I actually did see that it was 1 centimeter bigger. So it's 28 centimeters wide and 28 centimeters long, and on my rough draft it looks a little bit longer than it is wide, but that's okay. Okay, and then coming over here, I measured in between the other side of the beam and that cabinet, so that's from here to here, and I found that that was 262 centimeters. Okay. And then I actually measured the cabinet itself, and I realized that that was 61 centimeters deep, so you can make another mark here that is 61 centimeters deep. And that's the entire south wall. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 measurements just for one wall. So when you finish your entire rough draft, there are going to be numbers written all over this. It's going to be pretty full with numbers. Okay, so once you have all of your measurements taken with your group, and that's kind of why we're in groups, is because I want you guys to divvy up the responsibilities, and you come back together as a group, and let's say one group member had the tables, then you can copy whatever number they got for the tables. Maybe one group member did the filing cabinet and the table over here, then you can copy those numbers. And then once everyone has all of their measurements written down on the rough draft, then everyone's going to get a piece of graph paper, and this graph paper is what you're going to make your final copy on, okay? And I want to show you now how we're going to make our final copy. So we're going to be using the scale 1 to 50. So 1 centimeter in our scale drawing is going to equal 50 centimeters in real life. So that means that I'm going to, working backwards, any measurement that I have, it's real life measurement, I need to divide that by 50 to figure out how big it's going to be on my scale drawing. Okay, so I'm going to go through and draw the south wall for you now and show you how you need to do this. So the first thing I do that I think makes easiest is if I start at one corner, and I would make a corner kind of out away from the side, because if it's on the side, you're not going to have really any room for that. So I'm going to make one point right here for my corner. Okay, thank you. So if I have my corner there, and then I'm going to work my way around the south wall. So this first one right here is 61 centimeters. Okay, and if that's 61 centimeters, again, I'm going to use the exact same scale for everything. So instead of 61 centimeters, I'm going to take my calculator here, and I'm going to divide that by 50. So 61 divided by 50 is equal to 1.22. So I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm going to go over 1.22 centimeters. And I'm going to just make a note here, 1.22 centimeters. So then, now, when we go through these, every little square in this graph paper is a 1/2 centimeter. So a lot of kids are getting tripped up because they're doing 1.22 squares, but that's not what we're supposed to do. It's 1.22 centimeters, and I'm just going to round to the nearest 1/10 of a centimeter. So I'm going to do 1.2 centimeters. So I'm going to line my ruler up here and go 1.2 centimeters, and I'm going to make a mark right there, and that's going to be, that mark is the edge of my cabinet, okay? And then the next measurement is 262 centimeters, so I'm going to take my calculator again, and I'm going to put into it 262. I'm going to divide that by 50, and that's going to be 5.24. I'm going to round that down to 5.2 centimeters. So I'm going to make mark of that here, make a note of that. 5.2 centimeters. And then I'm going to move my ruler over, and I'm going to draw a line that's 5.2 centimeters long. Okay, I'm going to make a mark at 5.2, connect that line to the original line, and that's going to make the line to this part right here, which is the beam, which I know is 28 centimeters tall. So I'm going to take my calculator, 28 divided by 50, and now it's going to be 0.56, so I'm going to round that up to 0.6 centimeters. So I'm going to go up 0.6, and 0.5 would be a 1/2 centimeter, so it's going to be 1/10 past that, so it's going to be right about there. And then I know it's going to be the same thing going over, so instead of 28, it's going to be another 0.6 going over. Okay, try to make it as straight and as even as you can. And then another 0.6 down. Okay, should look like that. Okay, and now I'm back to the wall, and now this next measurement is 565 centimeters all the way to that beam thing that's sticking out of the wall. So again, I go back to my calculator and I do 565 divided by 50, and that's 11.3. So then I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to use 11.3 centimeters to draw a line. 11.3. Let me line it up because and again, when we're doing this final draft, you want it to be nice and neat. So 11.3 would be right there. Draw a line over. And then it's 27 centimeters, which is going to be really similar to that 28 one. So that was 0.56. So we'll go round out to 0.6. So it's a little bit more than a 1/2. So 0.6, that'll go up. 0.6 will go over. And then that is my first wall. So I just drew the south wall. And that's what it looks like, okay? So that's how much work it took just to do the south wall. And then when you're all done, hey, Caden, we hold off on that for just a second? Thank you. Because when you're all done, I did a final copy here, and this is what yours should look like when you're all done, okay? So, things I want to point out. I did this one is the one from last year. So some things are a little bit different. For example, the student desk, you'll notice that student desk, table A over there, has an additional desk over here that's not depicted in this scale drawing. Also, the filing cabinet and the table. This table right here is actually the table that's squished over next to the filing cabinet, so yours is going to look a little different there. Also, I told you guys you didn't have to do the turn-in basket, which I did on this one. You don't have to do it on yours. But the other thing I changed is that this cabinet right here is not included in this rough draft or in this final draft, but it will be included in yours. So when you start doing your final draft, it should end up looking something like this. Notice I have the door that is swinging outwards, okay? So that's the process, guys. You're gonna start with your rough draft, okay? You're gonna take all of your measurements, put all your measurements in. Then after you're done with your rough draft, you're gonna move towards converting every number in your rough draft towards a number that that's gonna represent the scale drawing number of centimeters. And then you're gonna start your final draft, which eventually will look like this.